everybody, good morning and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. My name is Rebecca and this week I tried something different, which is why this video is delayed. So basically this past week was an experiment. I went to an ATM and I pulled out $40 in cash and I wanted to see how long I could make that money last if I went to the store every single day and only spent a little bit at a time to make whatever it was that I needed to make that night for dinner. Now, to go over the system that I had in place, I was only making dinners. I feel like a lot of us have kind of reasonable ideas about breakfast and lunches already, but sometimes struggle to come up with what's for dinner. And also, I'm the type of person, a lot of times I either don't eat breakfast at all, or I pretty much have the same thing every single day for breakfast. But if you do need some good breakfast and lunch ideas, then feel free to check out some videos on my channel. I have a lot of meal prep videos, particularly breakfast and lunch ideas. Each of these meals was to feed 2 people, myself and Michael. If you have a larger family, you can always double or triple this, but for singles, you could make this for dinner and then have the leftovers for lunch the next day. From my own pantry and my own kitchen, the only ingredients I could use were oil, salt, and pepper. That is the usual structure that I follow. Everything else must be entirely budgeted in. If I use half of an ingredient, I still have to count the full price of that ingredient. So there might be some things that I use that you already have, making this $40 meal plan potentially even cheaper. For the purpose of this, I was doing my daily shopping at Dollar General. And while I was going to the store every single day to spend a little bit of money at a time, I am coming to you with a complete meal plan that you can follow and a complete grocery list if you wanted to recreate these meals at home. I recognize that not everyone can go to the store every single day. By me going to the store every single day, I was able to make each day's dinners by buying only 2 to 3 ingredients and using whatever I had from the day before. This resulted in a very dynamic and functional meal plan where leftovers are utilized in new ways to minimize cost, reduce food waste, and make the most of every dollar. This is in contrast to my previous budget meal plans where I would go to the store and spend the entire sum of money up front and then have to get creative with my choices, especially as we got closer to the end of the week. And this oftentimes led to me reflecting on what I could have or should have done differently. But by going to the store every single day, I kind of eliminated that variable. And lastly, before we get into the day by day of what I bought and what I cooked, I do want to talk about the $40 that I picked. I did kind of pick this for a reason. Mostly because it was an even amount that I could pull out of an ATM, but also because Dollar General oftentimes has coupons that you can use. Every once in a while, they'll throw out a $10 off a $40 purchase, making this meal plan about $30. Or more often than not, they have a $5 off a $25 purchase, making this a $35 meal plan for 2 people or a single with leftovers. So with that being said, let's hop into the first day of what I bought and what I cooked. The first day I already knew was going to be the most expensive day, relatively speaking. This was because I needed to buy chicken for the majority of the meals that I had intended to make this week, and the chicken was $7.95 for 2 pounds of frozen chicken breast. I've also been eyeballing this cilantro lime rice, so I figured now was a good opportunity to try it because it was only $1. So I also got chili beans for $1.35. I went with chili beans because they are pre-seasoned. There really wasn't any other reason, so you could use pinto beans, black beans, or any kind of beans you have on hand. A can of corn for 67 cents, a jar of salsa for $2.25, sour cream for $2.75, taco seasoning for 75 cents, and cheese for $2.75. Because I was paying cash every single day, there was no way for me to exclude the tax, so I did budget it in. I do live in a state with a relatively low tax. If yours is more expensive, then that might factor in. Or if you don't have any tax at all, it might be cheaper. Accounting for my 1% Virginia tax, my first day's total was $19.66, which is a good chunk of my budget, but I already knew that was going to be the case. You guys know we are going to make every penny count. The first thing I needed to do was assess the chicken breast. I had never bought this package before, so I didn't know how many came in the package. It turned out to be 4, so it looks like each one's about 8 ounces a piece, considering this is a 2-pound bag. There were some larger ones and some smaller ones. I did pick one of the kind of mid-size one for today's dinner. And I don't often post slow cooker recipes because I don't personally cook in a slow cooker very often, but I do have one very tested, very tried and true slow cooker recipe that I absolutely love, and it is 3-ingredient chicken. Essentially, you just take a chicken breast, a cup of salsa, and some taco seasoning, put it in your slow cooker, and let it cook on low for 6 to 8 hours or on high for 3 to 4 hours. Then you shred it up, and I do recommend, if possible, to use a mixer for shredding up your chicken because it will make this process a lot faster and easier. And this is a really versatile ingredient. I used to buy chicken breasts when they were on sale. I think they were like $1.99 a pound. Cook up a big batch of this and then freeze it in small portions so that I had a kind of ready-go meal option whenever I wanted to make tacos or nachos or burritos or something like that. For the cilantro lime rice, you can make it on the stovetop. I made mine in my rice cooker. It's just a lot easier that way. You can just put the rice in the rice cooker along with the amount of water and oil that the package indicates. Set it to white rice, set it and forget it. Takes about 30 minutes to cook. I am not going to be using all of the canned ingredients up front, so whenever I'm not going to be using the entirety of a can, I do transfer into a plastic container to store in the fridge. You don't want to store open canned ingredients in the refrigerator after they've been opened. There's some sciencey stuff that happens there, but food safety dictates that they must be transferred into a separate vessel for storing long term. From here, we can assemble our burrito bowls. There was enough rice for 3 servings, so I'm gonna set one aside for a future meal, and on top of my 2 bowls, I added some of my cooked chicken, corn, chili beans, shredded cheese, and sour cream. I did go ahead and assemble the 3rd burrito bowl, which will come into play here soon. This was one of our favorite meals of the week. We both really enjoy burrito bowls, and really anything Tex-Mex, Mexican-American, Mexican, or Mexican-inspired. So this was a kind of go-to for us, and we really enjoyed it, and it was a really great start to the first day. Moving on to day 2 and another trip to Dollar General. This day I wanted to try a new recipe that I had saw online for chicken spaghetti. For this I needed spaghetti, which was $1. Diced tomatoes and green chilies were also $1. Cream of chicken soup, also $1. And I needed some seasoning, so I got a packet of ranch seasoning for 75 cents. So on the second day, I only spent $3.79, and I have $16.55 left. For this meal, I'm going to be using the smallest of the chicken breasts that came in the package. I figured since it was a pasta dish, it would be pretty filling already. So into a pot, I added my chicken, a tablespoon of ranch seasoning, the cream of chicken soup, and about half the can of diced tomatoes and green chilies. Just like before, I will pack up the rest to store in the fridge, and then I'm going to bring this to a boil. Cover and simmer until the chicken is cooked. Mine was frozen, so the total cook time was about 45 minutes. Cut the chicken into small pieces and return it to the sauce along with a 1/4 cup of sour cream. Then I boiled 8 ounces of spaghetti. Since I'm only feeding 2, I only need about half the box. I mix this together with the sauce, and if your sauce looks a little thick, you can add a small amount of the pasta cooking water in to thin it out. Then I divided this between 2 plates, topped it with a sprinkle of shredded cheese, and this was my first time trying chicken spaghetti. Honestly, it wasn't bad. We both liked the sauce, but Michael thought he would have preferred it over any other pasta that wasn't spaghetti. He just said that it was kind of different eating something that looked like spaghetti but didn't taste like spaghetti. So in the future, I might revisit it and make it over bow ties or penne, but that's just personal preference. The spaghetti was perfectly fine. Now we're moving on to day 3, and on this day I got a packet of Jalapeno Velveeta cheese as well as a package of flour tortillas. The Velveeta was $1 and the flour tortillas were $1.75, and this is where that leftover burrito bowl is going to come into play. That burrito bowl was only 1 serving, but by turning the burrito bowl into burritos, I can take the 1 serving and make 2. I was able to reheat the filling and divide it between 6 tortillas to make 6 small burritos. Now I went back and forth on how I was going to go about preparing this meal, because originally I was thinking about mixing the Velveeta cheese sauce in with the filling and essentially frying the burritos and making a cheesy chimichanga, but kind of at the last minute I changed my mind. I took the Velveeta cheese sauce, I mixed it with some salsa, a little bit of water, and essentially made salsa con queso. Because a lot of cheese sauces in the store can be pretty pricey, in the $3 to $4 range, if I already had salsa on hand, buying this packet of Velveeta was a little bit cheaper option. And honestly, it was delicious. I may or may not have licked the spoon after I finished mixing this up. People might love to hate on Velveeta, but it is so good. I laid my burritos into a baking dish and I poured my cheese sauce over the top along with some shredded cheese, and I baked this at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. I topped these with sour cream, and now our leftover burrito bowl is now smothered burritos. And I think this was my personal favorite meal out of everything I made this week, and I will give credit to the Velveeta cheese for that. On the fourth day, I only bought 2 ingredients, mashed potatoes and barbecue sauce. The mashed potatoes were $1.35 and the sauce was $1.25, so my fourth day total was $2.63. I had thawed my 2 remaining chicken breasts because I was going to split them into thirds with the intention of trying to squeeze 1 extra meal out of them. But after cutting them and trying to kind of divide the portions evenly, I realized that since the chicken was so thin, it really wasn't a good enough portion of meat for 2 people. So I scratched that idea and just used a whole chicken breast instead. I cut this into cubes and tossed it in some salt and pepper and cooked this in a skillet on medium heat until it was just about done. Then I smothered it in some barbecue sauce and let this simmer down and thicken. When I was at the store, one of the things I was contemplating buying was ranch, but I decided that I didn't want to spend the money on ranch, and when I got home and was cooking, I had this revelation that I actually had the ingredients I needed to make my own ranch because I had ranch seasoning and sour cream. So I mixed a 1/4 cup of sour cream with a 1/2 tablespoon of ranch seasoning, and I just added a little bit of water to make it more of a dressing consistency as opposed to a dip consistency. And then this dinner came together really quick because the last thing that I needed to do was prep the instant mashed potatoes. I'm using the sour cream and chive flavor, but really you can use any flavor you want. This idea actually came from a meal prep service. I do subscribe to various email newsletters so I can get ideas on meals from kind of unique places. So I laid down a bed of mashed potatoes followed by some corn, chili beans, barbecue sauce, shredded cheese, a drizzle of the homemade ranch, and a drizzle of barbecue sauce. And if this meal sounds a little strange to you, don't be afraid, it is delicious. It's kind of like a barbecue chicken version of a KFC famous bowl. Going back to the intro, my goal was to make a dynamic and functional meal plan, which meant that I was trying to make sure that no 2 days were alike. And going to the store every single day gave me the opportunity to think in this construct. So the 5th day, I decided to make spaghetti. I did have that other half of the box of spaghetti, and there really wasn't any other practical way of using it beyond just making plain Jane red sauce spaghetti. But rather than just buying a jar of pasta sauce, which wouldn't be very interesting for you guys, I decided it would be a good opportunity to try the spaghetti sauce mix, which was 75 cents. And the recipe on the back of the sauce mix called for tomato paste, which was 85 cents. I also decided to grab some sausage. These skinless links are $2, so you just treat them like ground sausage. Ground beef was $4.70, so the sausage was the cheaper option between beef or sausage. And yes, it is breakfast sausage, but unless you're buying a flavored sausage like maple or sage, it really doesn't have much of a breakfasty flavor, especially when you're making it in dishes like spaghetti. So my total on the 5th day was $3.64. Now, in this case, I am trying to see how many dinners I can make for $40, but I'm not necessarily going with the cheapest option. I'm trying to make sure that these meals are really flavorful too. So I could have just bought a jar of pasta sauce, but I thought that this would be a way of making a more homemade feeling sauce. The sausage links comes with 7, so I used 3 for this meal and I will save the other 4 for another meal. I browned and crumbled my sausage and then I added in 2 1/4 cups of water and my can of tomato paste. If you use your can opener and open both ends of the tomato paste, you can push the paste through like an extruder, saving you from having to scrape the paste out of the tiny can. Last went in my spaghetti sauce mix and I let this simmer for 30 minutes and then I boiled up the other half of my box of spaghetti and mixed it into my sauce. We both really like this spaghetti sauce, but Michael thought it was a little bit too thick, so I probably should have added some of the pasta cooking water into the sauce, and we both agreed that it could use some Parmesan cheese, so if you have some of that on hand, feel free to add it. On the 6th day, I had several things that were kind of accumulating in the fridge that needed to be used up before they went bad. So the 6th day was kind of an odds and ends dinner, but with a purpose. On this day, I spent just $1.01 on this bag of roasted chicken rice. This dinner is more or less chicken tortilla soup. I'm using the remainder of my corn, chili beans, and diced tomatoes and green chilies, my final chicken breast, and a tablespoon of taco seasoning. I brought this to a boil, then I covered and simmered it for 30 minutes. While that was simmering, I made my rice in the rice cooker just like I did on the first day. And tortilla soup really isn't complete without tortilla strips. So I had 2 leftover flour tortillas. I cut one of those into strips and I fried these in some oil until they were crispy. I laid down a bed of my chicken rice, followed by my chicken soup, topped it with crispy tortilla strips, sour cream, and shredded cheese. This rice made 4 cups total, so I used 2 for today's dinner and I'll set aside the other 2 cups for tomorrow. This was my first time trying this roast chicken rice, and it might be one of my new kind of holy grail finds. It was such a good and flavorful rice. So moving on to day 7, at this point, I'm officially out of chicken. I do need a protein source, and I have some leftover rice. And honestly, there's no greater way to use leftover rice than to make fried rice. So on this day, I got mixed vegetables and a dozen eggs, and I spent $3.18. Now, I might have soy sauce in my fridge, but someone else might not. So again, everything is either entirely budgeted in or it is left out. So I'm not going to be using soy sauce to make this fried rice. But the chicken flavored rice that I had was incredibly flavorful, and honestly, I really didn't need the soy sauce in this instance. So in a skillet over medium-high heat, I heated up a good bit of vegetable oil until it was just about smoking, and then I added in my entire bag of mixed vegetables. I seasoned this with salt and pepper and just let it saute together. Then I added in my cooked and chilled chicken flavored rice and broke this up with my spatula. Once everything was heated through, I made a well in the center and cracked in 4 eggs. I scrambled the eggs directly in the skillet and then mixed it all together with the rice and the vegetables. Now I'm really serious when I say that this might be the only way that I make fried rice moving forward. It was really good, and honestly, I prefer the chicken flavored fried rice as opposed to a more traditional soy sauce flavored fried rice. I had an unspoken goal of trying to make at least 8 dinners out of this $40. That way, each dinner for me costs $5. If you're able to use the coupon, then each dinner is even cheaper potentially. But I didn't want to say this goal out loud just in case I didn't make it. So 8 was the goal, and this is the 8th day. On this day, I made my personal favorite dinner, breakfast for dinner, because I had sausage and I had eggs, so it was the logical choice and a very delicious one at that. I got a box of hash browns and a packet of country gravy, and I spent $2.27. Anytime I talk about country gravy mix, I do get a few comments telling me that I can make my own gravy with fat, flour, milk, salt, and pepper. I've made my own gravy several times. I do know how to do it, but ultimately when it comes down to budgeting in every single ingredient, if the price of flour and milk combined is more than just buying a $1.25 pack of gravy mix, then the gravy mix is the cheaper option. But if you have flour and milk, you can make your own gravy. This is just to give you some ideas. Waffle House hash brown breakfast bowls were the inspiration here, and if you didn't know, Waffle House does use dried hash browns like these. So I rehydrate them in hot water, and while they sit, I browned and crumbled my 4 remaining sausage links. I'm gonna fry my hash browns in a mixture of the sausage fat and a little vegetable oil until they're crispy. I also prepared my country gravy and thickened this on the stovetop. And lastly, I fried 4 eggs. To a bowl, I added some hash browns, country gravy, sausage, fried eggs, a little more gravy on top, and I love breakfast for dinner. And sausage and country gravy, and I'm convinced that a fried egg makes just about anything better. So at the end of the 8th day, I have $1.04 left, the rest of my country gravy, a single tortilla, ranch seasoning, taco seasoning, sour cream, salsa, barbecue sauce, and 4 eggs. Would it be possible to make a 9th meal out of the small amount of money and ingredients that I have left? I did grab some pork and beans with my final $1, and I made a bit of a breakfast skillet with the last of my eggs and some fried tortilla pieces, but honestly, I'd consider this more of a breakfast than a dinner. It was really delicious though. So at the end of my 9-day-long experiment, I did learn a few things. Personally speaking, I did better in an environment where I was shopping more frequently. I was more adept about what ingredients I had, I was less wasteful, I was more conscientious about price than I would be in a setting where I was only shopping once a week. This also eliminates the feeling to buy it now or you won't get another opportunity, or stock up on it because who knows when you'll be back to the store. And it allowed more freedom and flexibility when it came to my meal planning throughout the week. I feel like it's always been ingrained in us that the secret to saving money on groceries is to make a weekly menu, go shopping less frequently, and to stick to the plan that you have set. And if going to the store once a week causes you to feel the need to stock up on something, which may result in you throwing something away or wasting it, then it's not really saving you any money. Plus, sometimes I just don't have the time or energy to plan out 7 days of dinner in advance. And then plus, maybe that day comes around and I don't really feel like cooking or eating whatever it is that I planned for that day. And so it ends up in us ordering takeout or going out to dinner, which does also cost more money in the long run. Now, this isn't to say that I recommend daily shopping, because it is a lot of time, a lot of driving, a lot of thinking. I don't really recommend that unless you enjoy it like I did. But maybe switching from one big weekly shopping trip to 2 smaller shopping trips might just change your mentality enough that it helps you to save a little bit of money. That could be the happy middle ground. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Again, I apologize that it is so significantly delayed. I did put a lot of effort into this, and I'm really overall happy with how it turned out and how the meals all turned out. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon.